is a great month. December is a month that we celebrate Christmas, the birth of Christ. Merry Christmas to you all, although it's not until the 25th. But we're going to still say Merry Christmas anyway. Tonight we have a really special show. Tonight's guest is Ray Brookstein, also known as at Ray Poetry on Twitter. And he's going to be reading to us from his newly released book, The First Term Through Poetry, The Trump Chronicle. I hope you guys will tune in and will share the feed because this will be a great show. And at the bottom of the hour, Howard Freeman at America Downtown will be joining us, and he will be talking to us about one of my favorite topics, the election, politics. So again, I hope that you will join us. I hope that you will share the replay, share the news feed, because hey, this is where you get the real news and entertainment at megamedia.org. And without further ado, I will open up the video feed for my co-host. I'm sorry about that. I lost my co-host, Ed Andrew, and our special guest. Thank you. How's it going, gentlemen?
It's going good. How are you doing tonight?
Good, good. Ray, are you there with us? Ray, how's it going?
Oh, we see him.
Yep, we see him. He might not have his sound on.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hey. Okay, so all the parties are there. Yeah, I had a little delay when I was coming in also.
Really glad to be here. And
but Andrew, you do see us on Twitter, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So as I was telling everyone, we have a special guest with us. Ray, am I pronouncing your last name right? Is it Brookstein or Brookstein?
Well, I call it Brookstein. My dad always called it Brooks or Brookstein, but I mean, I tend to like Brooks all these years.
Brookstein. Okay, so Brookstein it is. So, Ray, we want to welcome you to the show, megamedia.org. Glad to have you on. I was tweeting about this earlier and letting some of our followers know that you would be on tonight and reading from your book. So, Ray, tell us a little bit about your background.
You know, I grew up in New York, on Long Island. I'm from a family of three brothers. My dad was a GI in World War II Army. He met my mom in London. So she's a war bride. And through the bombings in London, you know, subway. And she's still alive. She's 95. And she's very, very political. She loves Donald Trump to the extent that she's really become an outcast. Me kind of too with our family and so on. We all have felt the division over the last 4 years, especially within families, and it's been quite disturbing to say the least. And you know, we thought maybe it would settle down, but it really hasn't, has it?
Okay. But just from looking at some of your Twitter feeds, I see that a lot of people mention your mom. Like you said, she's 95 years old and she's actively involved in politics. Now,
yes,
is she like an inspiration for the book that you've written that you'll be reading from tonight?
Absolutely. She's been a big supporter of mine over many years. And when I started to write, you know, I've published 6 books of poetry. So it's quite an undertaking. And her quote has really been the inspiration for me. She always said, Ray, don't leave your light under a bushel. Because many of us, you know, we are a little shy and sometimes we don't want to be, you know, out there in the light. But it's very important to have a position. And that's why I write. You know, that I'm not going to leave my light under a bushel, and I'm going to be out there. And you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Not everything I write is great. I know that there are some poems that are just fabulous, and you know, but it's to speak from the heart, and it's all about, you know, a message, but also doing it in a way that people can tolerate it, because most people.
Go ahead. So Ray,
You know, we grow up, we don't.
Right, go ahead. Little audio problem there, but I'm going to try to work on that.
So I try to keep the stand.
Okay. And Ray, let me ask you this. So the book that you're going to read from tonight, The First Term Through Poetry, The Trump Chronicle, why Donald Trump? What was the inspiration behind that? Because most people write about love, about the way they feel, but not about a particular a president. I find this to be rather unique. So why President Trump?
You might need to try taking Ray off and then bringing him back on, see if he gets a better connection.
Yeah.
I think,
Okay, so Ray, what we're going to do is I'm going to close out your window. And if you could come back on, because we're having some problems, some technical problems. I don't know if this is Twitter or what's happening. Twitter has been known to try and mess around with their sound, but let me see here. So Ray, what I'm going to do, if you still hear me, log off and log back on. Send him a message.
Okay.
We definitely want him to read from his his poetry book.
Yes, and we are here with Ray Brookstein from the First Term. His book, Through Poetry, The Trump Chronicle.
And his book is showing up right now. He's going to be signing back on with us. And while he gets ready for that, he sent me a couple of pieces that he's going to read. I think he's with us now. Let's see if it's better. Ray, can you hear me okay? Ray, can you hear me?
I can.
There we go.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Every so often, we have a little technical glitch. That's what happens when you're working with technology. So our viewers are used to it. So, but what I was asking you before we had the problem is that what led you to write a poetry book of all books about genres about President Trump?
I think we all recognize that, you know, I call it a political hydrogen bomb went off when he was elected in November of 16. And as a poet, I felt that this was a perfect time. I had this concept, this idea, that I would chronicle his presidency through poetry. The good, the bad, the ugly, for as long as it lasted. Was a year, 2, 3, 4. You know, I finished the first term, and although the election itself is still up in the air, the first term is technically it's done. What we're really arguing right now is what happens with the second term. So, but the first term I felt needed to be recorded. And I wrote 4 books. I had the first year through poetry, the second, the third. And what I did with this one is combined all 4 years into one book. So that if the viewer or the reader doesn't want to go and get all the books, they can get one book and they could see the poetry that takes them through the events. You could take a look at the table of contents and look at the name of the poems, and you could decide just to go to that page. So people go over and over with my books. A book about Melania or Trump himself, you know, the election, COVID. I mean, every single subject that we have been through is recorded. I had a creative team pick out the best, they felt the best poems from each year and combine it in one book so that it could be also a teaching tool. My grandchildren, for example, they read my poems and they learn, you know, like I had a beautiful poem called The Equality Act. Or Spending a Life in Prism, you know, where they were talking about all the colors that are going on. So it's just been a great exercise. It was, you know, hard because you've got to track every day the events and then creatively put it on paper. So that's what I attempted to do. And I think it's been successful. I mean, my other books sold very well, and I hope this one will too.
And is this the second or the third?
This is
book.
actually
Ray, your mic might be turned up a little too high because you're fading in and out again. Gosh, I hate when that happens because he was like right about to just, really go into it. Then we started having problems. Andrew, can you hear him okay?
No, he's delaying for me also. But until we get him back, because he was just saying that I believe he said this was his second book, the first term through poetry. So yeah, check it out if you haven't already. Stick around here in just a minute. Ray's going to read some
he's going to be reading some pieces from his from the book. Having problems. I don't know what's going on here, but hopefully we'll get that worked out pretty soon.
Michelle from the chat room says the book is fantastic. History through poetry. So we look forward to hearing some of the poems.
So the book. So Michelle has. Oh, that's good. Michelle, she's read the book. She has the book. I'm going to have Ray. This is really unfortunate to have him to log back on again. Ray, sign back in again. Okay, so while he does that, I don't know why we're having these problems, but Andrew, as you know, these things happen. When I was, giving my opening, I was freezing up a little bit there. Mm-hmm. But, that's how Twitter works, I don't know if it's Twitter, I don't think it's Restream. I think it's Twitter. They don't want us to have Ray on. They don't want Ray to read from his magnificent book, the first term through poetry, the Trump Chronicle, because who else is going to tell the story about President Trump unless we patriots do it, because we cannot depend on the media or other publications as we see now as what's happening. Case in point, Hunter Biden. Case in point, Chris Swalwell. Is it Chris Swallow or Chris Swalwell? I never can get it right. Which he's doing one of those, I think. But what do you know? And then he's doing it with, what's her name? Bang, 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 the bang, bang, bang. I guess they were doing a lot of bang bang. You can't make this stuff up. I'm not making this stuff up, am I? They called her Fang Fang.
Fang Fang.
Yeah, Fang Fang. And he was going around with Fang Fang. Was he married then, or what? I just want the president should really. He's blaming President Trump and saying, "Oh, this is President Trump. He's coming after me." I don't think so. Because had the president known about this, he probably would have released this when the Fang Banger was out there saying that he had evidence that the president colluded. So that would lead me to believe that the president has nothing to do with this. He should probably look at the Democrats because, they play dirty games like that. If they see someone is in their way, they will come after them with a vengeance. So I want a leak to the media, and they probably say, "Oh, darn it, we got to report on this now because we don't want someone else to get it." Well, we don't want Newsmax to get it because they're beating Fox. They're going to beat us next. And we all know that CNN, they're struggling in the ratings. It's my understanding that AT&T wants to dump them. And they can't even. They have to give it away. Have you known about people that give it away because no one wants it? Well, think about CNN. They have to give it away. I think Ray's back with us. Let's see. We're going to get him to read really quick. Ray, are you there? Ray? Okay. Yeah, there he is.
Coming in nice and clear picture-wise.
Okay. Hey, Ray, can you hear me? Still frozen. Let's see. Let's give it a couple more moments here. I'll put this book back up there so you guys can see it. Because I'm told that the book is a fantastic history. Whoa. Okay, let's see here. No, Ray is still frozen. What is going on here? Yes, Michelle, I agree with you. They were accusing Hunter Don Jr. Okay. Ray's still frozen. Let me see if I can send him a message.
Or try putting him in the waiting room and bringing him back. See if that works.
Okay, I'll put him back in the waiting room. Okay, let's see. Let me see if you can see this message that I'm sending him. Ray, are you there now?
Yeah, I'm here now, but I was frozen. I'm here now.
Excellent.
I don't know what.
I don't know what's going on.
Tonight.
I am
like. And
I
there's a
mean, I'm
delay.
hardwired
Ray, go
in.
ahead.
I mean, I'm not even on wireless.
Okay, well, Ray, before we start, let me see here. Things start getting kind of screwy on us again. Would you please grace us with one of your pieces, a reading from your book?
I will. I have a few selections. We've gone through, especially this month, we've been all battling COVID.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, a lot of us call it a pandemic. But I wrote a poem called COVID-19 back in April of 2020. And I'd like to read it. It's called COVID-19.
Okay.
No matter what your ailment, you can put your mind at ease. Your stroke's not going to kill you. It's COVID, if you please. Your tumor's of no consequence. It could increase or it could shrink. But the logistics of statistics, it's COVID what they think. If your heart attack is minor, so that your blood clot doesn't, don't worry, they won't check the box. It's COVID, as you know. The flu ain't going to kill you if you're sniffling or you sneeze. Put aside the box of Kleenex. COVID-19 disease. Normal causes. Our dear old seniors feel it when we lay them down beneath the ground. Here over deceased. To those souls who are addicted, blessed homeless on the street, if they succumb, add the sum to the COVID-19 sheet. If your A1C is tanking and your sugar ain't so sweet, you can, it's COVID. So morbidity doesn't matter. In spite of any cause, this is how they keep us down with COVID counting laws. And that's a poem I wrote about COVID-19.
Wow, that was great. I enjoyed that. And someone in the room just said that your book is fantastic. Michelle, fantastic poetry. So I guess she has a copy of the book. Ray, where can our viewers and our watchers pick up your book? Is it on Amazon or? There we go again. Those gremlins are messing with us. He's frozen. Ray.
Okay, let me go to his Twitter page and see if I can find.
Okay, I think you can pick it up on Amazon, but I know you can Google it because I Googled it earlier, and I was able to find a copy of the book. I don't know why we're having these technical issues, but hey.
His pin tweet is Patriots, What You Tell Your Children and Grandkids About MAGA. My new book, The First Term Through Poetry, is written for all ages. Preserve our history as told by a patriotic poet. Order at raypoetryworld.com, a signed copy, or you can get it on Amazon. You can go to @raypoetry on Twitter to go to his pin tweet, and you can see the link to buy it there on Amazon, and also the link to his website where you can get a signed copy.
Okay, great. So there you have it, folks. That's where you can go to pick up Ray's latest book. And he just read one of his poems. We're going to try to have him back on in a couple of minutes. He just signed off. We're having some technical problems, but we will soldier on, and we're going to keep talking, and hope that you will stay with us and will join us. So, Andrew, what do you have for us? What do you want to say? What do you want to talk about, man? What's going on?
No, just the big news from today is Texas and 18 states now have joined Texas for this big lawsuit that's going to be headed towards the Supreme Court. President Trump has called it the big one. I did an article on magamedia.org. The fake news media is completely melting down over this story. Of course, they're acting like it's President Trump running all over the rule of law again and everything. What did you make of the Texas Attorney General bringing this lawsuit? Now 18 states have joined.
You know, I think it's great. And we're going to have Howard Freeman on in a couple of minutes, and he's going to talk to us about that and some other topics on the election and why, you know, he said that Trump won, especially the Hispanic votes. You know, for one, and I've heard, you know, on both sides, people are saying that, you know, well, you know, Texas filed this lawsuit and they're saying that, hey, these states infringed on their states' rights and affected them because of the way they handled their votes. And they're saying that because those states aren't neighboring states, the Supreme Court will probably not hear it, will toss it out. Here's my position on all this. After looking at the numbers, looking at the stories, looking at, the law and whatnot, and I am not an attorney by any means, and listening to the pundits pontificate, and I think where we are is that we have a Supreme Court that's supposed to uphold the law. They need to look at the law and administer it judiciously. Now, of course, public opinion and public sway is out there. Now, some people are saying that they probably won't hear the case because there's no merit. They'll probably say, okay, we hear what you're saying, but other states aren't really affected by it, so bye. So in essence, they're not ruling on it. They're just saying that there are other states that are nearby, Texas, Mexico, and Arkansas. Well, Arkansas is one of them, but some of the other states, Arizona, but Arizona is one of them. So what states would they say that aren't affected? But they'll probably come up with something and say, okay, be that as it may, still, we're not going to overthrow the election. And they would come to that decision because I think personally that they're afraid. They are afraid as to what might happen, what the people will do. Well, look at what the people are doing now. They're saying 80 million people are saying this election was stolen. You look at all the different key states, those battleground states. There was nefarious activity taking place, malfeasance all over. Votes were hidden, votes were popped in, they were counting the votes, and then they stopped. This just doesn't happen. And I don't care if they say, well, it was just a little small fraction. Small fraction is enough to make another person lose the election. If they were doing what they should have been doing, this would not have happened. So in my humble opinion, because we have the law, and because we should ensure that the election is fair, the Supreme Court has no other way to rule this but to say, okay, we're going to throw these votes out. You either do it again, or, just take out the votes, and then let's see who won. As simple as that. And that's all they need to do. They should just look at it and just make the decision to say, hey, we want all the votes to count, and these votes that we don't know who did what, when, where, and how, we're going to set them aside and let the chips fall where they may. And that's all the president has been asking for. We want legal votes to be counted. We can't live in a country whereby we're counting votes that aren't legal. It's just not fair. It's not fair to me, and I did the right thing. So a decision has to be made, okay? And I think that if the Supreme Court is strong enough and not afraid, they'll make that decision. They'll say, let's set aside those votes that we're saying that are illegal. And it's very easy to find those votes. Use media. And he's not going to listen to it. They're not going to listen to it. So I think it's right, to be honest with you, Andrew, I think it's a coin toss, as well. They won't listen to it. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. The Supreme Court is obviously has some partisan moments themselves. So
especially John Roberts.
Yeah, especially John Roberts. We can never count on him. But this new Supreme Court with Amy Coney Barrett, Justice Gorsuch, and Judge Kavanaugh, they're under a lot of poetry and pressure. And we are looking at them after what we went through to get them confirmed and in their seats. President Trump moved walls to get them confirmed, right? And they should really have his back,
right? And not only that, I mean, because so that our viewers will get us right, we just want the law to apply. We want a fair and balanced election. That's it. Is that so difficult to ask for? I mean, because what we got was, we didn't get that. We had people who were clearly cheating. And it shouldn't be that way. This is not a third world country. So why is it that we can't just say, hey, we have these votes. These people didn't vote the right way. You people here did something that you should have been doing. And I don't care if they were Republicans in Georgia, the Secretary of State, and all these other people. I mean, they changed the rules in Pennsylvania the month of. Now, if you go back and look at the Pennsylvania ruling, when Judge Alito, when they said, okay, we're not going to hear this, in essence, what they were saying is that, okay, not that based on the merit, you didn't have a case, but because you let this last so long, if you thought that there was an issue, you should have raised the issue earlier on. Why wait until now? That's what he was saying, basically. Okay. So it wasn't that he just threw it out. No, he was saying that, hey, guys, come on. You had all this time to look at it. Why didn't you bring this up before now? So I'm hoping that the justices will put on their big boy pants, big girl pants, and just say, hey, we can't live in a country like this. It has to be, people have to walk away from the poll booth knowing that they voted and that their votes count and that it wasn't illegally done, which is what happened. Even Democrats, I think they were saying 35% of Democrats think that the election was stolen. I mean, they will probably say, oh, yeah, but we don't care. Why? Because we don't like Donald Trump. But now that we see what's coming out with Eric Swallow and Hunter Biden and this whole China thing, I mean, this is scary stuff. And if the media were to do their job and stop sitting around pretending as though there's nothing to see here, you would have more people saying, hey, this has got to stop. It has to stop. Because I don't like what's going on. And I think right now this would be a good time to bring in, let's see here. I think Ray's back. Let me see if we can get Ray, but we're going to definitely bring in Howard because he's going to, enlighten us on a couple more things also. Let's see if Ray is ready. Ray, can you hear us now? Okay, I think he's still frozen. Let me bring in Howard. Howard, can you hear us?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me? Because I'm having a little Bluetooth problem.
Oh, no, we can hear you.
Okay, here I am.
Ray. Let's go with Ray.
Okay, well, Howard, we can hear you loud and clear. And Ray, I can hear you now. We want to thank you for reading a poem from your book. And without further ado, will you please read another poem while we have you loud and clear?
Well, since I listened to you saying, Rob, and, it really shakes us up, exactly what you were talking about. And so I'm going to read a poem. It's a little morbid. I wrote it in July of 19, and it's called The Death of America. When the last statue is down, pulled way down to the ground, and no more marble is found, it's the death of America. When she is gone, it won't take very long. They will have no way to spawn. The death of America. When they muffle us, and it's a crime to rejoice, we gave up our freedom of choice. It's the death of America. When you can't genuflect, there's no God's given no more respect. It's the death of America. When there's no school left to teach, only what world governments preach. Every child's out of reach. It's the death of America. When there's no husband or wife, they squeeze out all unborn life. The family will never survive. It's the death of America. When I can't write a verse, recording this curse, it can't get any worse. It's the death of America. When
There it goes again. Just when it was getting good.
Man, they really hate us tonight, don't
Oh
they?
my gosh, this is unbelievable. Well, this is the perfect lineup. And what is Twitter doing? Wow. He's frozen again. Okay, so let me send him a message that he's frozen.
Okay.
And we will pivot to our good friend, Howard Freeman at America Downtown. How's it going, man?
Good. How you doing, Rob? And hey, Andrew again. Yeah, Ray is still frozen. I was enjoying that poem too. I thought it was great. The refrain of death, the death of America was a sober one, but I think there's a lot of reason for hope. You can still hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Do you want me to jump into what I've got to offer?
Absolutely. So just so that our audience will know, Howard and I were like chatting, and he came up with me. He sent me a DM, and he was telling me about some statistics that he had ran, showing different things as to what was taking place, the different states, and So, Howard, please share us your analysis.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So just to tee this up, by day, I'm a nonprofit fundraiser. So I spend my time either in restaurants with donors or on spreadsheets. So I'm both the sort of the art side and the science side. So I love digging into the numbers. And this, it's kind of like baseball, right? This election has had no shortage of interesting facts.
Right.
And as I dig through everything, whether it's the black vote or the Latino vote or the inactive voters vote, one thing is we all know that the Democrats for years have seen different groups as monolithic groups. One thing that I was very interested in early on as a white person, as a white man, having grown up in New York City, is I was seeing more and more, granted, very public figures who are black who are supporting Trump. But then I'd see just the average person on the street doing a YouTube, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. You know, Trump's getting all this grief for all the things that he has said through the mainstream media, but I'm seeing all these supporters who don't look like the typical Trump supporter. So I started digging into data here and there. And while the Latino vote is less, let's use Democratic terms, less monolithic than the Black American vote, there's some interesting trends between 2012, 2016, and 2020 that convinced me that this one trend is yet another that convinces me that Trump won the landslide. And when I finished looking at the data, I kind of came to the conclusion that, and I don't mean this disrespectfully toward Biden voters who I consider to be more Trump haters than Biden voters. When you look more and more at the facts, there's almost a mental disorder that has to be present to avoid the blatant truth right in front of you. I call it logic dysphoria. So I'm giving it a nice name to sort of make people who have logic dysphoria know that it's not terminal. It could be a degradation of the prefrontal cortex or mask-borne COVID, I don't know. But there is some logic dysphoria going on. So getting down to the data, I looked at a couple things last couple days, the Latino vote today being the most recent. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that Trump got more California votes than any GOP candidate ever, even more than Reagan, even though Reagan was the former governor of California and he won in 1980 and then again in 84. Trump got more California votes, period, not just GOP votes, more California votes than any GOP candidate ever. So not that California is a bellwether, but the fact that it's been so consistently a blue state, going so heavily, relatively speaking, for a GOP candidate was astounding to me. Likewise, another kind of odd feature, as I looked at this yesterday on my website, americadowntown.com, is there have been 19 counties. All of us, you know, as we watch election night, we get used to seeing different counties coming in and people say, no, this county is really important for predicting elections, just like we say this particular state is a battleground for not just the electoral votes, but kind of Ohio has been seen for years as a bellwether state. Ohio and Florida have been hotly contested over recent years, but Ohio has always picked the president. And even though it was heavily Trump this year, people say it didn't pick the president. That's an odd one. Yep. Florida, I'll get to in a minute. But of the 19 bellwether counties that have selected the president ever since 1980, only one of them didn't vote for Trump this year. And that's a little county up in the peninsula of Washington State. So it's up here at the top of the Olympic Peninsula, across the Puget Sound of Seattle. And up here, there's a county called Clallam County. I won't go into all the demographics, wrote it on my site, but the long and short is that they voted for Biden. And the weird thing that I found is that the demographic of the voter looks oddly like what Biden voters say Trump voters look like. They're generally over 65, high school degrees mainly. They are generally poor. They're largely unemployed, and yet they're pretty able, pretty healthy. There's a lot of government work there with the national park, the Olympia National Park. But the demographic, the one county that voted for Biden was mainly people who Biden voters say Trump voters look like. So you can take that or leave it. Now, as to the Latino vote, in terms of white guys like me, we don't often realize that one thing that makes the Latino vote not a monolithic vote and not even a thing is that Cuban voters in Florida are different from Puerto Rican voters in New York, are different than Mexican voters in Texas, are different than people who might be seen as Latino who aren't, but Filipino voters in California or Hawaii. They're all different demographic groups with different stories, different allegiances that we white people often see as one group. But one thing's for sure is that this election, people started to break more for Trump. Another sign for me that Trump just won in a tsunami landslide. So I'm going to look very briefly at 2 counties and mention 2 others. The one main county is Miami-Dade, which is in the south part of Florida. Obviously includes Miami. We all know that Bush v. Gore in 2000 was a squeaker, right? It came down to a couple hundred votes in the hanging chads. Those of us who are old enough saw it firsthand. It was great television. Bring your popcorn, right? This year, or I should say 2016, Trump beat Clinton by 100,000 votes in Florida. It was a fairly convincing win. I think it was like 2 or 3 percentage points, maybe 4.
Okay.
2 at least. This year, Trump beat Biden by 370,000 votes in Florida. So it was almost tripling his win this year over his win in Clinton in 2016. That told me one thing. If you go down to Miami-Dade, very heavily Latino county, basically, and I know that all these stats, some people are like, oh my gosh, please just get me to a restaurant instead of look at the spreadsheet. But this year, basically, I could go through all the details. I wrote about it, but basically there was a 21-point swing between 2016 and this year from the number of voters that Biden lost and what Clinton picked up. So just picture Clinton's strength going from like here down to here, and Trump's strength going from here to here. So the Latino vote and the vote in general, because you can't really parse out the Latino vote in Miami-Dade versus the non-Latino vote. But basically, Miami-Dade is very heavily Latino. So you can kind of extrapolate that if Miami-Dade changes a lot, there's a lot of Latino difference in there. But Cuban Americans are solidly Trump supporters. There's a group out there called Los Tres de la Habana, like Los Three de la Habana. And they do this song called the Trump song. Look it up on YouTube. It's awesome. It'll just like get you dancing. It's awesome. A lot of Cuban support for Trump, but Trump is narrowing the Democratic lead there. And if he stays in office a second time, not that he'd run for a third term, but I could see that turning red as a county in 2024. That's Miami-Dade. That is then followed by Starr County. Starr County, Texas. There are 20 counties in the country that have very heavily percentages of Latinos. 17 of the 20 are in Texas. I live in Texas. And the most concentrated number of Latinos in the country by county is Starr County, Texas. It's down toward the bottom tip of Texas, if you would imagine that, the point kind of in the bottom. It's only 61,000 people there, so forth. But it went pretty heavy Obama in 2012, as you might imagine, big over Romney, right? It went convincingly for Clinton in 2016, like 50 points. But this year for Biden, it still did vote for Biden, but in Starr County, there was a 56-point swing in Starr County toward Trump, okay? So Biden lost heavy Latino voting. Now, this is a county that's mostly Latino, like far and away Latino, heavily lost Latino votes. Trump just killed it in Starr County, and it's kind of a bellwether county for Latino votes. Then briefly, and I'll kind of sum up the stat part with this, I said to myself, okay, well, that's just like a 61,000 person county. Should I look at it another way? So I looked up, okay, what's the most populous county in terms of Latino residents? It's Orange County between LA and San Diego. It's about 4.9 million people. It's actually bigger than the city of LA, that county. It's got like 24 cities. It would actually form the second biggest city in the country if you took it as a city. So for Orange County, Biden won, but not by a lot. And Trump lost no votes between 2016 and now, but he did much better than Romney did in 2012. So he's solid in Orange County, which is a red county anyway, but he's solid there. In another, so I said, okay, that's the most populous. What about other parameters we might look at? And I saw, okay, Dixon County, Nebraska. You think Nebraska? What's that about? Dixon County, Nebraska has had the highest influx of Latinos since 1990, up to 2018 when it was studied. And in Dixon County, there too, we see a lot of gains by Trump in 2016 and 2020. So whether you look at a historically strong Latino county in Miami-Dade, or a hugely high percentage Latino county in Starr County, Texas, or Orange County, or Dixon County in Nebraska, all these things point to Trump winning. Ohio and Florida, Trump is up. California votes for Trump, up. And yet we're told that that it was not only not a Trump win, but somehow Biden got however many votes, like 8 million more votes, or we can add on a couple million tomorrow if you'd like. So I'm looking at the numbers every day, and not that that's as exciting as the Supreme Court stuff, but it convinces me more and more and more that Trump won by a tsunami landslide, and Democrats have a lot of pictures for you. That's what I got.
So, okay. So based upon what you're saying, why do you think, or what exactly is going on? Do you think that there was fraud?
I do think there was fraud. I think that, what do I think is going on in the election period, or why do I think that people look at this and can't accept it?
Both. Why are people looking at this and they can't accept it, other than the fact that they just don't like the president? Yeah. And given the fact, like you said, you studied the numbers.
Yeah.
Which is like, and we've all said statistically, when you look at this,
yeah,
Trump is at the top of the ballot, and when you start looking down,
yeah,
and these Republicans won, it knocked out Democrats. Yeah. And usually the person at the top is going to get the votes.
Yeah,
it's going to carry it. And then we are hearing stories that in some instances, the president's name and vice president wasn't even on the ballot, but they claim that they corrected it. I have no faith in those individuals. So why do you think people are having a difficult time?
Yeah,
I mean, the basic logic, the statistics of it.
Yeah, I think that it comes down to two human emotions, and this won't surprise anyone. I think it's anger and fear. I think that, and hatred mixed in there, which is a result of both, right? Hatred kind of comes out of fear. Mm-hmm. I think we're talking about basic human psychology. I grew up in New York City. I grew up around Trump. I mean, I used to do special events as a fundraiser. I've seen him at events, never had any personal contact with him. But anyone who's grown up around Trump knows that he's kind of got this bigger than life, almost buffoonish, kind of, glitzy, whatever. And he kind of just tolerated it, right? So when he came into the 2016 election, he was a known quantity to me. For many people, with the things that he said and did as portrayed by the popular media, not in reality, like a lot of us who watched the rallies this year with RSBN, and you see the whole rally, when people saw what the media presented him as, he was a shocking, revulsive, Hitler-esque like person. And in fact, there was a video that came out about 2 months before the election by this group called jewishmedia.org mm-hmm. that actually had a split screen showing Trump and supporters like us and Hitler and Nazis, and said the hate must stop. I mean, it was so inflammatory. I can't believe that actually was out there. So getting back to anger and fear, when people are presented with those images and they think the country is going a certain direction, then they hear things like, oh, Trump puts kids in cages, oh, Trump does this, and they don't hear about his funding of historically black college right. universities. They don't hear about all the things you guys know, that they get so angry, so fearful, so fed up that any debunking of the Fine People hoax, any data, doesn't matter. All they can think about is, how do we get this guy out of there? So right. I won't go into, like, you guys have probably had arguments with, getting unfriended on Facebook. I've been through that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't right. matter. So fraud is just one more attempt of his to steal what they feel is rightly theirs.
Right, because when you think about it, like you said, I mean, the hate that they have for the president, we just want to get him out.
Right.
It's like, can't people see all the good things that he's done? And I've said this before. He's bombastic. He's loud. He's in your face. I mean, he's not necessarily politically correct. He says a lot of stuff, but his heart is in America and he loves the country. And for people to say he's a racist, I'm like, please tell me something else. Because if you go back 8 years or 4 years ago, you'll see all his music or his name mentioned in all these rappers' videos. So I'm thinking, where did the racism come?
Yeah.
So I'm like, what is it about him that they hate, other than the fact that he knows how to win and what he's done for the country? We have not gone to war, nothing but prosperity. We haven't been down. I mean, and you look at, like you said, look at blacks, the number of blacks that have been successful under this president, and Latinos. And if the media would only report on it, including Fox News. Forget about Fox News because they're not going to. You have to go to Newsmax or One American News. But the success that he has had, you look at what he did with the Second Chance Act, getting blacks out of jail. A large number of black men are in prison. Okay, Barack Obama did not do that. It's not. He didn't even think about it. And if he did think about it, it's like, okay, I don't have time for it. I mean, he didn't want to fund historical black colleges. He said maybe they should consolidate. So when you look at what this president did, and even if, let's say that he was just doing it for the votes, just to pander, which he wasn't, but don't politicians pander to their base and pander to votes?
Yeah, that's the way they get them. And then the typical anti-Trump argument at some point comes around to, oh, COVID, that's the word ending argument, like Nazi used to be. Oh, COVID. Yeah. And you can't even say, well, look at what the governors did, look what the mayors did, look what Trump did in terms of shutting down travel. Cuomo didn't shut down JFK that quickly. Right. Mayor de Blasio in New York, Rob, told people to go to the movies or whatever in mid-March, but they don't get any blame. All the blame gets deflected for COVID, for riots or anything. Everyone, it all sticks to Trump. I was going to use an old expression that was in Uncle Remus books, but some people wouldn't get it. But everything that happens that's bad gets stuck onto Trump. And so it's a logic dysphoria, it's a data dysphoria, it's a failure to act and think rationally because people are angry and afraid. And it comes down to those two basic emotions, I think.
And that is a reason why we have to make darn certain that if Biden is successful in stealing this election, that he does not get credit for Operation Warp Speed. Did you guys know that there was peace, that they signed a peace agreement with Morocco and Israel? Quiet as it's kept. Yeah. All these major things that are taking place, and the media absolutely refuses to cover them. Yeah. Biden will come in and get all the credit. What do you say, Andrew?
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of things that the media has refused to cover, look at this Hunter Biden tax probe that we're now seeing that they completely ignored before the election. They called us conspiracy theories, said we were crazy. And now Hunter Biden himself has come out and admitted he's under investigation for his taxes.
Right, yeah. and we knew about that. Those of these guys saying, "Oh, there's nothing here." You had about 100 CIA guys coming out saying, "Oh, there's nothing to it." Now, how do they feel right now? We should go and take all of their credentials because they were dead wrong.
Yeah.
And as far as Christopher Wray, I have no use for him at all. I have absolutely no use for Christopher Wray. And if Biden is saying that he's going to hold him over, that lets you know he is not worth his weight. He should resign immediately.
Yeah. Rob, you're really right, especially about when you said that Biden shouldn't get credit for Operation Warp Speed. However, the companies, obviously, anyone involved with anything right now that has any skin in the game for Biden is going to make him look good. I've got a friend who's got a contact and I trust this friend, with my life. He's got a contact in the government task force that worked on the vaccine and COVID, and the contact told. He's a very conservative contact. Contact told my friend that Pfizer knew that their vaccine was 90% effective, and it's either 90% or better, or it's not effective at all. They knew that it was 90% effective 6 days before the election. But Pfizer and this task force made an intentional decision to withhold that information until after the election. And if you noticed, it was announced on November 9, And there was some insider, when I say insider trading, I mean people who had inside positions on the stock, traded it on Friday, what would that have been, the 6th, and the stock popped up on the 9th when they announced it, of course. But people withheld that information intentionally till after the election. And then you see the stock has risen like 17% since November 9. And so Pfizer isn't going to let Trump take credit for the vaccine, and other people involved in Operation Warp Speed won't let Trump take credit for that either.
And that's most unfortunate, because if it wasn't for Trump, they would not be in the spotlight. He's a person who believed that, hey, we can get this done. And I want our viewers to realize that when you really look at this, Operation Warp Speed is phenomenal, because you don't have vaccines that go out on the market and are ready for use within 8 months. It usually takes anywhere from 8 to 10 years. So this is phenomenal. And although the media, once again, is making light of this as if this is no big deal, this is a big freaking deal. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that are saying, hey, I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to do it. I'm afraid. I get it. But this is a huge, as Trump would say, huge deal. Okay? Because this just doesn't happen overnight. And all the testings and things that you have to do. When he came out, I think it was in March, and was saying, these are the companies that are going to put this together. These are the distributors. He mentioned Walgreens. He mentioned CVS. People weren't really listening, and they couldn't comprehend what he was saying until now. And of course, the media is going to downplay it. The only thing that you will see from the media is that 250,000 deaths, 10 million people have contracted the virus. Okay, 10 million people have contracted the virus, and only 250,000 have died. And a country with 333 million plus people, folks, that's good.
Yeah.
In New York, they're saying, oh, we had our worst numbers. 3,000 people died within one day. Okay, but let's look closely at the numbers. As Ray was saying in one of his poems, did they really die of COVID-19? Or did they have COVID-19 and they died of a heart attack? Or they died of cancer and they're just marking COVID-19, which is really deceptive.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be done.
Yeah, you can go to the CDC website, same CDC that's citing a lot of these stats, and see that in 2017, 2018, that was a terrible flu season, and they had about 2 times to almost 3 times the number of cases of flu, 810,000 hospitalizations, and about 60,000 deaths. So, not the 280,000 now, but still it was a very deadly flu. And it's hard to compare what people actually died of in 2017 versus actually died of now. But like Ray was saying in his poem, you can have this and such, but the pathologist says it's COVID. And that's a political move. Ray is absolutely right.
Yeah, a political move, and it's most unfortunate. And people, because they're not giving us the truth, they being the media, who is supposed to be the guardians of the news and to give us in the news and we report on it accurately, they're not doing that. People just don't know. Just like people they were completely unaware. And to me, I'm like, are you serious? There's so many voters out there that were completely unaware of Tony Bobulinski, because big tech was successful in suppressing the story. The news media was successful in suppressing the story. They didn't want to get it out there. And granted, Fox News, thanks to Tucker Carlson, not Fox News Division, Tucker Carlson broke this story, and it seems as though none of the others wanted to carry it. He broke it, put it out there, but still it was suppressed. Right. And it shouldn't have been that way. So you look at COVID-19 and you look at all these other things, like you said, look at the election numbers. A lot of them were saying that Trump was going to lose and that Biden was ahead. And then come election night, when the results started coming in, and we saw clearly President Trump was ahead. Yeah. And I remember some of my friends called me who liked Trump, and they were saying, oh, congratulations, are you happy? Are you happy? I didn't say anything because I didn't want to flaunt and say, ha, 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 ha. And then when they saw that the trajectory was constantly going in Trump's favor, then all these key swing states started, oh, we're going to shut down. We're going to close. Then you had Fox calling Arizona. We're going to shut down. We're going to close. And then the next thing you know, oh, Biden is ahead. Yeah. How could that be? So if the Supreme Court does not hear this case, it's political. They were afraid. And afraid of what? Afraid of the lady that was in, what was it, Michigan, who's saying Trump supporters better be careful. You better tread lightly. You better be careful. And I don't think she's in jail as at this moment. It's almost 11 p.m. Eastern time. I don't think she's in jail. But if
for calling on her soldiers.
Said that person would be in jail right now. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I interrupted you. I was going to say back. I agree with you, Andrew. Back on COVID for a moment. If Trump gets a second term, I think he'll get blamed for a lot of things that we'll see around the world. America being the leader and coming up with the vaccines by Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, or whoever puts it out there. But since it has to be transported to areas that may not be near major hospitals at such a low temperature, we may be able to do that in America with the military. But a lot of other countries can't. You think of Africa, or where transportation is an issue. My organization works in the Philippines, and there are a lot of remote areas. It's got 7,000 plus islands, and a lot of the people in the Philippines got a really bad vaccine not too long ago, the last couple of years, for the dengue fever, and a lot of them died. So they're kind of vaccine hesitant, and a lot of the people in the world are going to be vaccine hesitant. So there'll be a lot of deaths. And whose deaths will those fall at the feet of? It's going to be Trump. So he'll keep getting blamed because, again, everything sticks to him.
Unfortunately. Now, I was able to bring back Ray, and I would like for Ray, if you could, reading one of your poems, hopefully that you won't get the gremlin within the internet won't mess you up. Could you read the poem that you read, you started off with, because it's so timely?
I don't know which one we in the middle of. Did you hear the 19 poem?
Death of America.
Yes, COVID-19.
You want me to redo Death of America?
Yes, you can start with that one, Death of America.
Okay. And then I have one last one. It'd only take a minute, called Somebody Wake Up Joe. Okay, again, this is the Death of America. When the last shoe is down, pulled way down the ground, and no more marble is found, it's the death of America. When he and she's gone, it won't take very long. They will have no way to spawn. It's the death of America.
Oh, no, not again. Okay, folks, we tried. We wanted to get that in, but we will have Ray again back on the show so that he could read. Hopefully, we'll be able to work through those problems, the audio technical problems that we're having with the audio. We'll be able to work through them. But his poems, from what he's read so far, sound really great. And I'm looking at the chats. A lot of people are saying that the book is good. So I would definitely recommend that you go out and buy his book. And we will have him on megamedia.org again to read his poems. And hopefully at that time, we won't have all these internet gremlins that are messing up. So, but and the election, I think that those numbers that you gave, Howard, are really impressive for you to take the time and to put it together. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are doing the same thing. And it seems as if though it is up to us citizen journalists to do this, because the mainstream media is not going to break it down the way you broke it down.
Well, yeah. Thanks, Andrew. Rob, sorry. I'm partisan, but I do let the data take me where it takes me. So I wrote something on Jewish voters, and I actually start out writing saying, I don't know where this is going to take me. So then I started doing my research as I wrote. Obviously, Rob, in New York City, 83% of Hasidic Jews went for Trump, in part because Cuomo tried to shut down the worship, and in part because they have a strong tie to Israel. Other parts of the country, like Florida, where a lot of Jewish people move, they care more about COVID and the economy. So they're 70% Biden. But I didn't know that until I wrote it. So I try to go where the data leads me. And in this case, and I don't think I'm being partisan or biased, I'm just going to look at this data and going, it's unbelievable. If you can't see it through the data, someone is blind, really, if they can't see it. They're just too angry, too fearful to not see it.
Yep. Absolutely. What do you say, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely right. And I don't know if Howard's done any research on this, but we briefly mentioned the flu numbers being way down this year. Have you been able to find the numbers? Or I tried looking it up the other day. It seems like the CDC is doing a pretty good job of hiding the flu numbers this year. They're kind of mixing them with the COVID numbers.
Yeah.
But Pennsylvania is one of the few states that had reported its influenza cases so far this year. Only 12 hospitalizations and 1 death in the entire state for the entire flu year so far. So obviously they are way down. Have you been able to find any numbers, Howard?
Yeah, I haven't yet, Andrew. I haven't looked, frankly, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see those kind of numbers. And again, no one tends to look at the CDC numbers in past years. That's why whenever something new that comes out that seems to stick to Trump about COVID, I'll tweet out something about that 2017 flu season, which was terrible. It was devastating. But older people could still be with their loved ones. You could go see your loved ones in nursing homes. There wasn't that kind of lockdown. Everyone forgets about the 10,000 people or many thousands of people that Cuomo sent to the nursing home in New York.
Yep.
1,000 died. So yeah, Andrew, you're right. I mean, the CDC has got lots of stats that are there that even if they buried it, if someone looked, the stats are the stats, but they look at them differently somehow than they do look at COVID stats.
Yep. Well, gentlemen, that is all that I have today, unless there's something else that you want to cover. It's unfortunate that we were unable to have, Ray to read more of his poems. But as I mentioned in the chat room, he will be back. I don't know if it's the internet gremlin, if it's Twitter, or who's doing what. But from what he was reading, it sounded great. And I want to have him back again to read more of his poetry. Go ahead, Andrew. You're about to say something?
Yes, just one more news story I briefly want to touch on.
Sure.
CNN originally reported this today. They found it in the Chinese COVID protocols. Apparently, the Chinese have asked all their flight attendants to wear a diaper now instead of having to use the lavatory in an airplane. They want their flight attendants just to go to the bathroom in the diaper. So I guess it's safer that you don't have to use the bathroom with all the COVID germs in there and stuff. So right now it's wear a mask, but I guess it could be worse. It could be wear a diaper, huh?
Are you serious? To wear a diaper? It reminds me of the astronaut who was going to kill her lover's girlfriend, and she put on an astronaut diaper so that she wouldn't have to stop. What do they make this? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is insane. You have Swallow Swalwell, who's banging Fang Fang, and you got Hunter Biden, who's going around doing whatever the heck he's doing. It's like, my God.
Yeah. Now we know that Joe Biden does wear a diaper. He has for years.
I would think so. And we also know that he loves pulling tail, running around the house butt naked or stark naked, pulling his dog's tail, and then he falls.
Yeah.
And you know what's also interesting, now that I think about it? He has been quiet since this Hunter Biden story came out. Yeah. So that's probably the way his administration, if he's successful in winning this. Now I want to say something else, and I know a lot of people will probably won't like. What happens if he is successful election? 4 years of this guy. Do you think that Republicans will have the balls to impeach him? Because clearly there is some malfeasance that's there. And even if there isn't, the Democrats opened up the floodgates. They should just impeach just to impeach. I think every president should have that mark on their name, impeach. What do you think is going to happen? I know this is a bit early. We'll probably talk about this once January is gone and came and gone. But what do you think? What do you guys think? Are you guys thinking that far ahead? Because I am.
Well, it has to start in the. Go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say they might not want to impeach because the alternative behind him, which would be Kamala Harris, would probably be a whole lot worse.
Yeah. And I believe it has to start in the House, which is still Democratic. Right. You have to bring the articles of impeachment there.
Yep, it has to start in the House. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that if they are successful, Republicans, in taking the House, and even if they're not, they should just mention it, just to put to scare these guys. They
could be a midterm thing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. They could win in the midterm, 2022.
Yep.
Then bring articles of impeachment. Sure.
But even if they impeach him, they got to get rid of her also. I want the whole lot of them to go away because what they're doing is completely unfair. So our last hope, our last stand right now, if we want to see a change in 2021, is that the Supreme Court will come in and say, hey, set aside those votes that are in question, do it over, or, let things stay the way it is. If I were sitting on the courts, if I saw what was happening, especially with China, I'm sorry, I would say, ain't no way, because Joe is completely compromised. And if he isn't, because he probably doesn't even know what's happening right now. He's just going through the motion. He got up the other day, he confused the person that he was going to nominate for, I think it was the Secretary of Housing and Health, and he got that all confused. So I don't even think he knows what's going on. And one last thing, look at how they're attacking Senator Feinstein now. Now they're saying that for the past several years, she's been cognitively challenged. Really? You guys are just now figuring that out? She's 87, as well as Nancy Pelosi, and only now? And that was probably leaked by someone on the Democratic side that they're mad at her and they want her out. So they're going to start leaking all these bad stories. And she's probably wearing diapers also, I think.
Yeah, that would not surprise me. What is Feinstein? She's like 85 now, isn't she?
Yeah, she's 87. She's 87.
Oh, yeah. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I try to put the other hat on and think that if articles of impeachment are brought forward, which they should be, to Biden, let's say we do control the House, what the Democrats will feel is exactly what we felt, which is, okay, prove it, show me. And even if convincing proof came out, do we think that somehow it wouldn't get quashed or put aside? I'm not so convinced. I think if we can't fix this election, I won't trust any impeachment proceedings in the House or the next election for the midterm.
Yep. Yeah, and here's another key issue. If Joe Biden is able to get in with the way things stand now, he's going to do amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants, maybe as many as 20 million people are saying, and that could completely change the electoral voting base as well.
Yeah. And on that, the one final stat for me is there are 50 million Latino voters. So Latino being, again, it could be Cuban, Mexican, et cetera. 50 million Latino voters in America right now, or 50 million Latino people in America. 27 are eligible. 27 million are eligible voters. So 50 million adults, 27 million are eligible voters. So wow. What Andrew said is, if there's amnesty, that number could go way up. But again, I think that Trump has made an opening for Republicans, conservatives to show that there's great opportunity on an individual family level to succeed in America in the way the Democrats can.
Yeah. How much of it do you think is the Latino supports coming from the Cuban community as compared to, like, say, Mexican immigrants?
Well, again, Miami-Dade, which is heavily Cuban, and Puerto Rican, went much more for Trump than they did last time. Not over Biden, but much more for Trump. And for the Mexican-American community in Starr County or in Orange County, which probably has a lot of people from Central America, went much more for Trump than they did last time. So I think we're seeing in all areas of the country. I didn't check out the Bronx, which has a heavily Puerto Rican population, as does the top of Manhattan and Washington Heights and Dominican. I didn't check those. I may, but I think we're seeing all Hispanic voters move toward Trump. I don't know if that's going to be the case for the next Republican or conservative, but certainly Trump they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. I read a stat that President Trump did better with every demographic except white males, which is pretty much what Howard was telling us earlier.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I voted for Trump, so I'm one of the few.
Yeah.
I'm one of the few blacks that voted for Trump. Yes, I proudly voted for him. So that's all I have, gentlemen. Andrew, do you have anything, or Howard, do you guys have anything else? This has been a great show.
No, just
again.
Yeah, we'll definitely try and get Ray back on. Maybe we'll do a pre-recorded interview with him and get it up on YouTube so you guys can check that out with him reading his poems. We want to thank him for coming on. And thank you, America Downtown. You can find him on Periscope at America Downtown. He's on all the time with some great feeds, sharing some knowledge. He brings on you just bring on just about anyone who wants to call in, don't you, Howard?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's free mic. Open mic.
Exactly. So if you want to join Howard, just check him out on Periscope and he'll let Democrats, Republicans, it doesn't matter who calls in. He'll talk to you. I've seen him do it. So great Periscope there.
Thanks, Andrew.
We'll be back Sunday with Joe Collins, the guy who ran against Maxine Waters in California. So that should be a good show Sunday night.
Oh, good stuff. Well, thanks, Andrew and Rob. Appreciate being here. It was fun.
Absolutely. And
Thank
as
you, Howard.
always, I want to say to our fellow Georgians, please get out there, make a plan, and vote red. Vote, vote, vote. No matter what they say, no matter what's going on, you make certain that you get out there and vote, because the state of the country depends upon it. Please vote, Georgians. Get out there and vote. And if that's it, we will end this show. Thank you. God bless. Be safe. And we will see you on Sunday. Thank you all.